Good morning. It is approximately 11:05, and we're going to call the meeting of the City of Cadillac Code of Ethics Board to order. Carrie, could you please give us a roll call?
Petcha?
Yes, here.
Kent?
Here.
Amir?
Here.
Okay, first item on our agenda is approval of minutes from the December 12th, 2013 meeting. Let me just take a moment to look at them. Okay. I do see the minutes advise of the transcripts and have them attached as well. Are there any comments or need for revision?
No.
No, Linda? Mike?
No.
May I have a motion for approval?
I motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Support.
Okay. Roll call?
Petcha?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Amir?
Yes.
Approved. Okay, this is an opportunity for public comment. Is there anybody from the public that would like to come forward at this time? Hearing and seeing none, I will close public comments. The next item are board items. The first item under board items is A, which is request to move to closed session to discuss written attorney-client privileged communication. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Carrie, roll call?
Kent?
Yes.
Amir?
Yes.
Petcha?
Yes. We are going to adjourn to closed session, and we will return. Thank you. May I have a motion to bring us back into open session, please?
So moved.
Support.
Carrie, if you could just call the roll on that.
Petcha?
Yes?
Kent?
Yes.
Amir?
Yes.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda under board items is item B, discussion of a complaint that alleges a violation of the Code of Ethics by an employee. The Code of Ethics Board may also determine whether a violation of the Code of Ethics has occurred. Mike, if you could perhaps read the opinion that you have.
Sure. I drafted a proposed opinion and recommendation, which may be considered by the Ethics Board. And I'll read this just so that everybody is aware of the content. It's entitled Opinion and Recommendation. By letter dated December 4th, 2013, Mr. Douglas Mellema filed an ethics violation complaint against Lieutenant Detective Todd Golnick, an employee of the City of Cadillac and a member of the Cadillac Police Department. The complaint alleged that Lieutenant Detective Golnick violated Article 6 Code of Ethics of the Cadillac City Code, known as the Code of Ethics. Specifically in the complaint, Mr. Mellema alleges that Lieutenant Detective Golnick improperly used the City of Cadillac's logo to support a mayoral candidate. The letter at issue is an endorsement letter sent to Ms. Carla Filkins by the Cadillac Police Command Officers Association that was drafted and signed by Lieutenant Detective Golnick and later published in the Cadillac News. Mr. Mellema alleges that the unauthorized use of the logo violates the city's Code of Ethics. Pursuant to Section 2-391A of the Code of Ethics, complaints alleging a violation of the Code of Ethics by an employee shall be filed with the City Manager, Director of Human Resources, and the City Attorney, collectively referred to as the Ethics Board. The Code of Ethics requires the Ethics Board to investigate complaints to establish whether there is a reasonable basis to believe that the respondent has violated the Code of Ethics. Consequently, City Manager Marcus Petcha, Director of Human Resources Linda Kent, and City Attorney Michael Homier convened a meeting of the Ethics Board at a public meeting on November 25th, 2013. At that meeting, the Ethics Board determined that there was a reasonable basis to believe that Lieutenant Detective Golnick violated the Code of Ethics. Specifically, the Ethics Board determined that there is a reasonable basis to believe that a violation of Section 2-367 and 2-368 of the Code of Ethics occurred. Those sections state as follows. Section 2-367, Use of City Property and Resources. An officer or employee shall not use or permit others to use any property owned by the city for profit or personal convenience or benefit except A, when available to the public generally or to a class of residents on the same terms and conditions, B, when permitted by policies approved by the City Council, or C, when in the conduct of official business used in a minor way for personal convenience. Section 2-368, Political Activities. Any violation of the Political Activities by Public Employees Act, MCL 15.401 et sec, or the Michigan Campaign Finance Act, MCL 169.201 et sec, shall constitute a violation of this article and shall be subject to the sanctions set forth herein. At the meeting of the Ethics Board on November 25th, 2013, and pursuant to Section 2-391 of the Code of Ethics, a hearing was set for December 12, 2013 at 9 a.m. to hear testimony and receive evidence regarding the complaint. On December 3, 2013, the Ethics Board convened again at a public meeting to discuss organizational issues related to the hearing. Specifically, the Ethics Board adopted general hearing procedures for the conduct of the hearing. Lieutenant Detective Golnick received the notice of the December 12, 2013 hearing. By letter dated December 4, 2013, Lieutenant Detective Golnick was provided with a copy of the complaint, notice of public hearing on the complaint, and a copy of the general procedures adopted by the Ethics Board. Lieutenant Detective Golnick was encouraged to attend and informed he could be represented by counsel. Lieutenant Detective Golnick, as the respondent, had the opportunity to make a brief introductory statement, call witnesses, question witnesses, present evidence, review the evidence, and make a brief closing statement. City Attorney and Ethics Board member Michael Homier received a call from Jim DeVries, the business agent for the Cadillac Police Command Officers Association, who stated he was representing Lieutenant Detective Golnick, that he would accept the documents on behalf of Lieutenant Detective Golnick, and that Lieutenant Detective Golnick would be provided a copy. Mr. DeVries confirmed receipt of the documents by email correspondence on December 5, 2013. Despite having notice, Lieutenant Detective Golnick did not attend the hearing. In fact, on December 11, 2013, the night before the scheduled hearing, Lieutenant Detective Golnick submitted a notice or request for vacation time indicating he would be taking time off on December 12, 2013, and he did not appear for work the day of the hearing. No adjournment was requested by Lieutenant Detective Golnick or his representative. At the hearing, the Ethics Board considered the alleged violations of the Ethics Ordinance. Consistent with adopted procedures, the complainant made an opening statement setting forth his opinion, the alleged violations. The respondent also had the opportunity to make a statement, but again, he failed or refused to attend the hearing. There is a footnote that reads, at the hearing, the Ethics Board confirmed that the hearing was only limited to the allegation that a city employee used public resources in a manner contrary to the Code of Ethics. The hearing would not address any issues involving union activities or political affiliations. Further, the hearing would not address policy violations other than the Ethics Code, including general policy violations or violations related to the police department policies. The city conducted an investigation which included a search of the city computer system. As evidence, the Ethics Board introduced a copy of the city's use of internet email policy. The policy states that all email and internet services are property of the city. There is no expectation of privacy with email sent or received using city property. The evidence admitted by the Ethics Board indicates that the endorsement letter was created using city computers on October 27, 2013 at 10:37 a.m. and was later modified at 11:32 a.m. There were several other versions or documents related to the endorsement letter created on October 28, 2013. The documents were saved under a folder listed as T. Golnick. The final endorsement letter was scanned into the city's copy machine and emailed to Lieutenant Detective Golnick's email address at 3:31 p.m. on October 28, 2013. The city's logo that was used on the endorsement letter is city property. Thus, the documents were created on city property using city computers and copiers and bearing the city's logo. The endorsement letter was first created on Sunday, October 27, 2013. Based on payroll records, it does not appear that Lieutenant Golnick was on duty at that time, but came into the police department to use the city's computers and other resources to create the letter. However, on Monday, October 28, 2013, Lieutenant Detective Golnick worked an 8-hour shift and had 2 hours of overtime. The payroll records indicate that Lieutenant Detective Golnick was on duty when he created the final endorsement letter, signed it, scanned it, and emailed it to his city's email address. The plain face of the endorsement letter shows the city's logo was used. Further, the city's address and phone number was used on the Cadillac Police Command Officers Association endorsement letter. As the respondent, Lieutenant Detective Golnick had the opportunity to appear, question the witnesses, and introduce evidence. He did not avail himself of the opportunity. As a result, the evidence submitted at the hearing was not rebutted. Pursuant to Section 2-391, within a reasonable time following the hearing, the Ethics Board shall determine, based upon the evidence and testimony of the hearing, whether a violation of this article occurred and any appropriate sanction that should be imposed. Findings of fact. The Ethics Board makes the following findings of fact based upon the preponderance of evidence and testimony admitted from the public hearing. Number 1, a complaint was received alleging violations of the Code of Ethics by Lieutenant Detective Todd Golnick. Number 2, Lieutenant Detective Golnick created the endorsement letter using city property and resources, namely the city's computers, email, and internet system and copier. The purpose of the endorsement letter was to endorse a candidate in the city's mayoral election. Number 3, Lieutenant Detective Golnick modified and finalized the endorsement letter while on duty as a police officer and while being paid by the city. Number 4, the endorsement letter included the city's logo, which is property owned and controlled by the city. Number 5, neither Lieutenant Detective Golnick nor any other official from the Cadillac Command Police Officers Association requested or received permission from the city to use its logo on the endorsement letter. Number 6, drafting the endorsement letter was a private action by Lieutenant Detective Golnick and or the Cadillac Police Command Officers Association. Drafting the endorsement letter was not part of Lieutenant Detective Golnick's responsibilities as a police officer or employee of the city. Determination. The Ethics Board has determined by the preponderance of evidence that Lieutenant Detective Todd Golnick violated the city's Code of Ethics as follows. Number 1, violation of Section 2-367, use of city property and resources. Section 2-367 provides as follows. An officer and employee shall not use or permit others to use any property owned by the city for profit or personal convenience or benefit except A, when available to the public generally or to a class of residents on the same terms and conditions, B, when permitted by policies approved by the City Council, or C, when in the conduct of official business used in a minor way for personal convenience. The Ethics Board has determined that Lieutenant Detective Golnick violated Section 2-367 of the Code of Ethics. The city's computers, copier, email system, and other supplies are city property. Lieutenant Detective Golnick used such city property for purely personal reasons to endorse a political candidate. Such use is totally unrelated to his duties as a city police officer. Number 2, violation of Section 2-368, political activities. Section 2-368 368 provides as follows. Any violation of the Political Activities by Public Employees Act, MCL 15.401 et.sec., or the Michigan Campaign Finance Act, MCL 169.201 et.sec., shall constitute a violation of this article and shall be subject to the sanctions set forth herein. A. Political Activities by Public Employees Act. The Political Activities by Public Employees Act 1976 PA 169 as amended provides that an employee of a political subdivision of the state may engage in political activity except during those hours when that person is being compensated for the performance of that person's duties as a public employee. MCL 15.403 parens 1 parens D and 15.404. Public employee is defined by that law as, quote, an employee of the state classified civil service or an employee of a political subdivision of the state who is not an elected official, close quote, MCL 15.401. because Lieutenant Detective Golnick is an employee of the City of Cadillac and engaged in a political activity while on duty as a police officer for the city, the Political Activities by Public Employees Act 1976 PA 169 was violated and constitutes a violation of Section 2-368 of the Code of Ethics. B. Michigan Campaign Finance Act. Section 57 of the Campaign Finance Act specifically regulates the public body's activity in relevant part as follows. Number 1. A public body or person acting for a public body shall not use or authorize the use of funds, personnel, office space, computer hardware or software, property, stationery, postage, vehicles, equipment, supplies, or other public resources to make a contribution or expenditure or provide volunteer personal services that are excluded from the definition of contribution under Section 4(3)(a). The prohibition under this subsection includes, but is not limited to, using or authorizing the use of public resources to establish or administer a payroll deduction plan, to directly or indirectly collect or deliver a contribution to or make an expenditure for a committee. Advance payment for reimbursement to a public body does not cure a use of public resources otherwise prohibited by this subsection. This subsection does not apply to any of the following. (a) The expression of views by an elected or appointed public official who has policy-making responsibilities. B. The production or dissemination of factual information concerning issues relevant to the function of the public body. C. The production or dissemination of debates, interviews, commentary, or information by a broadcasting station, newspaper, magazine, or other periodical or publication in the regular course of broadcasting or publication. D. The use of a public facility owned or leased by or on behalf of a public body if any candidate or committee has an equal opportunity to use the public facility. E. The use of public facility owned or leased by or on behalf of a public body if that facility is primarily used as a family dwelling and is not used to conduct a fundraising event. F. An elected or appointed public official or an employee of a public body who, when not acting for a public body on his or her own personal time, is expressing his or her own personal views, is expending his or her own personal funds, or is providing his or her own personal volunteer services. 3. A person who knowingly violates this section is guilty of a misdemeanor punishable if the person is an individual by a fine of not more than $1,000 or imprisonment for not more than 1 year or both, or if the person is not an individual by one of the following, whichever is greater. A fine of not more than $20,000. B, a fine equal to the amount of the improper contribution or expenditure. MCL 169.257. Generally, the Michigan Campaign Finance Act prevents the use of public funds and equipment in the promotion of a campaign, as demonstrated from exclusion 1F. An employee would not violate the MCFA if, when not acting for a public body but is on his or her own personal time, is expressing his or her own personal views, is expending his or her own personal funds, or is providing his or her own personal volunteer services. Here, Lieutenant Detective Golnick was expressing his personal views or those of the Cadillac Police or Command Police Officers Association using city resources and property, and while being compensated for his duties as police officers by and for the city. Thus, the Ethics Board has determined that he has violated the Michigan Campaign Finance Act and Section 2-368 of the Code of Ethics. Recommendation. The Ethics Board has determined by a preponderance of evidence that Lieutenant Detective Golnick violated the City of Cadillac Code of Ethics. Pursuant to Section 2-391 of the Code of Ethics, the Ethics Board shall determine any appropriate sanction that should be imposed. However, it is the opinion of the Ethics Board that Section 2-391 of the Code of Ethics, together with other city policies and procedures, do not confer any authority on the Ethics Board to actually impose any sanction. Rather, Section 2-391 only authorizes the Ethics Board to determine, quote, any appropriate sanction that should be imposed, close quote. Whether a sanction will be imposed is within the authority of the city. Considering all of the uncontested facts of this matter and the severity of the violation, the Ethics Board has determined and recommends that Lieutenant Detective Todd Golnick should be suspended without pay for a period of blank days, and that a copy of this opinion and recommendation shall be placed in Lieutenant Todd Golnick's personnel record. A copy of this opinion and recommendation shall be provided to the city. This opinion and recommendation disposes of all the claims within the jurisdiction of the Ethics Board and closes this case. So that's the proposed opinion and recommendation. We're free to discuss it, revise it, adopt it. Of course, we need to fill in the recommended sanction, which we'll leave up to discussion.
And any typos, you can
Yes.
get back to us, okay. Okay. So the big question is the blank on the last page. I think the opinion and recommendation as read into the public record and as put together based upon the testimony received and the discussion really clearly states the issues that are at hand, clearly states the violations that occurred, and I'm certainly in support, therefore, of a suspension without pay as being recommended by this body. The question of identifying a reasonable period of time is what we need to do at this point in time, and certainly we would need to do that by motion. Is there any further conversation, Linda, that you want to add into that, or Mike, that you want to add into what you just read? I know verbatim.
No, I
Through the
think
6 or
that
7
we have
pages.
to determine what's
Okay.
appropriate.
I think that at this point, looking at a solid work week would be an appropriate period of time. I don't know if any members of the board want to contest that. Certainly, you have the right to do that, as we're here discussing, what it should be, so.
Well, I think, the issue is making certain that the discipline matches the violation.
Mhm.
And I think that it's important to do first that, and second, to make sure that it serves as a deterrent effect with respect particularly to use of city resources in political activities, which is prohibited, not only by state statute, but also by the Code of Ethics.
Do you think that's too much, too little? We recognize that there is no guide with respect to determining the time off, or at least I don't certainly have a rules of the road book that says X amount of time. It's somewhat of an arbitrary number, but I think what we're trying to accomplish is what you said, that it's reasonable as compared to the violations that were incurred. Linda, do you have comments, thoughts on duration? Too much, too little, just right?
I agree with 5 days. I think it's sufficient time, not too little, not too harsh.
Mm-hmm.
Fits what he did.
Mm-hmm. Do we want to look back at the findings of fact area? Go through that again. And Mike, maybe if you think it'll be helpful at all, that one footnote that you had read into the record as well?
Yeah, well, we'd explained, and it's in the transcript as well, that we're only considering those issues within the jurisdiction of the Board of Ethics. We have not, nor do we have jurisdiction over any other policies, procedures, et cetera. So, which, you know, I will reiterate here today.
Mhm. Is there any further discussion? If not, I guess I'll call for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, hold on one second. Was there something?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I motion to adopt the opinion and recommendation as drafted with the amendment of the suspension to be 5 days of unpaid leave in the second to the last paragraph on the last page.
Yeah, I would, I will support that, but I also want, hopefully, the motion to be amended to include correcting a couple minor typographical errors, none that are substantive, but relate solely to sites, and also filling in that number of days in the opinion and recommendation.
And you'll just get it back to us?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you agree to those amendments?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a motion,
Support.
support? Carrie?
Pecha,
Yes.
Kent,
Yes.
Lemire.
Yes.
Motion passes. There are no other printed items on the agenda. Is there anything else at this point in time for the Ethics Board to discuss?
No, the only other thing that I would mention, and I think I've already said it, is that the Ethics Board doesn't have any jurisdiction over whether to actually impose any discipline. It is a recommendation only. That opinion and recommendation will be forwarded to your office now as city manager, so that the city will decide whether or not to impose a sanction, a different sanction, and so ultimately that's within the decision of the city how to implement any sanction. So.
And that would be, when you're referring to city, you're referring to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it rests on your decision, whether or not that's implemented through somebody else or the police department. I don't know, but ultimately it's the city's decision.
Okay. Linda, did you have any comments to make?
No comments.
No, okay. Anything else to make?
No,
So-
I will make one comment. Whatever anybody else thinks about this matter, I think the Ethics Board did its job. There are individuals on one side of this or another who aren't going to be satisfied one way or another. But our job was not to satisfy any person or group or individual, but to do what the Ethics Board believed they should do under the ethics ordinance and recommend a sanction that was appropriate under the circumstances, and I think we've done that.
Thank you. No, I agree as well. It's been a long process, and certainly the first time we've gone through this process, but I think we did what we had to, and I think the importance is that we followed a good process through it. So
I have a procedural comment I'd like to put on the record.
There's public comments come and gone.
yeah.
I realize that you can, I'm requesting an amendment to allow for an additional comment because I think the record needs to be clear as to the closed session.
Ma'am, the record is clear and there is no public comment. There was an opportunity for public comment, and nobody had
you
any.
have the power under your Robert's Rules of Order to make an amendment and allow for an additional comment.
I don't support it.
All right. Is there support?
No.
No, I'm sorry. There being no further business, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.